Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about the 100, episode 606, titled Memento Mori, which premiered Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 on the CW after a week of no new episodes. So huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode already, please go to Diesel first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. Otherwise, my other video reminders are up on screen. Take a moment to remind yourselves of those, and quick YouTube shout out to Mr. Legendary AO, who left a long yet very interesting comment on my 605 video, and as I'm recording this, I haven't replied yet, but once I upload the video, I would have replied by then. So there's a lot of stuff pointed out, but I do appreciate the long comment. It definitely put a little bit more new perspectives for me, or at least made me aware of how some rants came off certain ways. So I'll try to tone it down in this one. But I'm going to try this in 20 minutes. So let's start the clock and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So first off, Memento Mori is actually translates into Remember You Must Die, which is pretty fitting for the concept of the primes, I must say. So there's that. But timeline-wise, I'm saying this kind of continues from where 605 left off. It's definitely the next morning, because I'm under the assumption that the time in between 605 and 606 is like that night where Murphy is trying to give Josephine a crash course on how to be Clark, pretty much. I don't think it's spanned over more, if you know what I mean. So there's that. Episode reminder, I'm going to say that this is the episode that everybody finds out that Clark is not Clark anymore, that she's dead, and that she's now Josephine of the Primes. So there's that. Episode objective, I am going to say that it's pretty much everyone trying to salvage their attempt at peace in whatever way, shape, or form, whether it's peace of mind, peace of a treaty. But yeah, I don't know what else to put the objective of as. There's multiple things happening in this episode. So with storyline breakdown, 3 major storylines, but the first one does have a bunch of mini ones. So of the first storyline, I'll pretty much sum it up to being Earthborn people versus the Primes, essentially. Second storyline dealing with saving Octavia. Third storyline dealing with the separation ritual. So with the first storyline, this has 3 sub storylines inside the Earthborn vs. Prime section. You got the first one being creating Nightbloods, which we get where we see characters Murphy, Josephine, and Abby. Murphy trains Josephine on how to be Clark, and then Josephine uses that knowledge to try to convince Abby to create more Nightbloods. So she kind of uses Kane as a leverage point, so there's that. Second subplot is trying to convince Murphy to take the deal, or not Murphy, Bellamy to take the deal, and this is where we see Murphy trying to convince Bellamy, which later on turns to Russell trying to say his piece as opposed to Josephine just killing Bellamy off. And then also a sub thing about that is Echo on her own journey to try to find Bellamy. When she's told that he's on a foraging mission, she finds out that Bellamy's actually in danger and that Clark is not actually Clark. So she finds this all out before she returns and actually gets the news from Bellamy that Clark is dead. So there's that. And then the third subplot to storyline 1 is the radiation lessons that we get with Raven, Riker, and kind of in Mori. She kind of comes in and out of it, but instead of them learning, we do see them fighting over the fact that Riker is a prime and that Raven is just against the fact that they're pretty much sacrificing their vessels for the primes to live on. So you get an argument there, and then Riker trying to defend himself, also claiming the fact that he never asked to be resurrected, yet he doesn't stop it. So there's that. So the second actual storyline is saving Octavia. So this one we do see Octavia, Diosa, and Xavier, the child Gabriel guy, aka Dr. Kalu from The Good Doctor. But this one particularly deals with the fact that Octavia now her body seems to be rapidly aging, to the fact that she kind of looks fossilized in her hand due to that whole calcification thing that happened when that green light kind of went over her, and apparently her hand was exposed to the green light. And apparently the green light is called the temporal flare, and that originates from the anomaly. So with what's happening with Octavia, they find out the fact that she's been getting a message from, I don't know how, but they're making it seem like it's some supernatural presence thing. But it's leading them to the anomaly, which is the source of the temporal flare. Also, Xavier said that what's happening to Octavia is kind of like a time dilation thing. I'm not sure, but they said that once it reaches her brain, then that's it. She's done for. We also do see red tree sap that has been exposed to that temporal flare. It has the capacity to heal superficial wounds. I don't know if it's just specifically the trees that were affected by the temporal flare or if it's all the trees in Sanctum, but we do see that happening. So anyways, that's a little bit long. But with the third actual storyline with the separation ritual, so we get Maddie being plagued by the Dark Commander. Now every reflection she sees him there. Gaia tells her to go through the separation ritual to again separate from the Dark Commander, but instead of being guided by the flame and the other commanders, she's stuck with that Dark Commander, and he's trying to pit her against Gaia to the point like, hey, kill her, she's keeping you restrained, you're not at your full potential because of her. So instead of killing her, Maddie actually banishes Gaia instead. So don't know how that's going to happen since they're on a whole new planet. But anyways, last moment of the episode, which I was so thrilled to see, was the fact that as Josephine sleeps, Clark actually wakes up in her old cell in the skybox. And we see the initial drawing that she did in episode 101 before she was taken out to be put on the dropship. But instead now all the walls are covered with all the drawings that she has done over the last 6 years. You saw a picture of Lexa, you saw pictures of Maddie, you saw pictures of Bellamy, you saw a bunch of different ones that we've seen her do over the years. So they're all in one place now. So we know that Clark is still alive in some way, shape, or form. So there is that. I mean, plus this is also the first time Josephine has slept since she's been in Clark's body. So it was kind of a little weird why they would show that, like her getting ready to go to bed, but there's reason. So there's that. So character-wise, though, Dark Commander or Shaheda, again, they are appearing to Maddie as it's assumed that he's growing stronger inside of her. And now I'm left wondering if Lexa had to deal with this, if all the previous commanders before Maddie had to deal with this, or if it's just because Maddie's, I don't know, so young or something. But then I don't know, wasn't Lexa younger when she became a commander? I don't know. But he definitely seems to be becoming stronger for some reason. So there's that. Now Riker, we find out that he was the age of 206 when he entered his current vessel, which is the 9th vessel, making him Riker the 9th. I don't know if initially, like, how long ago that was, so he might not still be 206. He might be a few more years older than that. But yeah, at least we got a date for that. But we do get confirmation that it was him and his mom that were the originals. That I kind of did it in the previous video, but they are the one that had only the 2 in the family. So there's that. With Kaylee, Kaylee Lee, so it's the family of 4, the daughter of the family of 4. We don't see them, but we do see that their memory drives were completely erased, and Murphy ends up getting 2 of them, and Abby, in the next part, actually gets the 3rd memory drive to be used for Kane. It was kind of her incentive as to why she should create new Nightbloods, because if she turned Kane into a Nightblood, with Josephine / Clark watching over her, then they could find a way to create their own new Nightbloods. But now Abby now has a way by using the memory drives to save Kane. So that's 3. So there's a 4th one that's been erased and is unaccounted for. So there is that. Also with Jade, which is Josephine's bodyguard, doing a sucky job of it, but she's now a prisoner to the tree that pretty much feeds off of people, which is just gross. So we see that, and that's because of Echo's fast thinking, so kudos there. Also, we do see Russell briefly, and he claims to be against the violence, yet he feels guilty over what he did to Clark, but he wants to go for peace, while it's like complete opposite to Josephine. She pretty much views the idea of them creating their own Nightbloods giving them the opportunity of picking their own vessels. She even said, quote unquote, genetic pick of the litter. So it's kind of like no one would be safe type of thing. So that's like pretty, yeah, they're definitely complete opposites, but it seems like her mom, Simone, seems to be more willing to go along with Josephine's plans than, like, Josephine went to her mother instead of going to her father, knowing that he would be against what she's trying to do to ensure their survival. So, which was in part deleting the Lee family memory drives. So there's that. Anyways, tidbit wise, let's talk about the prime immortality issue. So Raven is against it. We see a lot demonstrated in this episode. We see Mori being intrigued by the idea, and we do see, well, it's implied that Murphy got her a memory drive as well. So there's that. We do also find out that the primes are sleepless the first few nights in their new vessel. So there's that as well. Also, with the Prime immortality, with Raven specifically, and our arguments with Riker, we do get both sides of the fact that Raven sees what they're doing to the vessels as pretty much raising these people to believe the Primes are these gods, and to have them believe that them sacrificing themselves to play these vessels is like their calling in like the highest form of honor. And then Riker is explaining how like the vessels, when the Primes take control of a vessel, they don't view it as murder because the vessel is offering themselves to them, so they're sacrificing themselves for them. So he doesn't view it, or they don't view it as murder, which is not what Raven sees it as. So it's very interesting to see, because then on the one hand, it's all based on how they were raised to see something. So on the one hand, Raven brings up the fact that these people were raised to believe that them sacrificing themselves to the gods of the Primes actually means something and is an honor to do so, since so few people have that opportunity. Like, there's not many Nightbloods, right? So like they make it seem like it's an honor, so that when it does happen, they don't it's not like grief. Like, we see the difference in grief. Like, we see in this episode the grief of the of our Earthborn people. We see Bellamy grieving over Clark. We see Maddie grieving over Clark. And we just see everyone horrified, like Murphy's initial reaction to the fact that Clark's dead. We see their initial reaction to the concept. But then when we remember to Delilah's naming day, and when Priya arrived, and then everyone kind of giving like, saying like she's in like what's supposed to be the funeral. Afterwards, when Jordan tried to explain like how could you be okay with this, like they were just they weren't grieving like our Earthborn characters were grieving. So it's just like, it's a very huge difference. So it just has me wondering, like if they were told differently, or if they're told differently now about what's happening, would that change their tune? It's kind of like thinking, like, I don't know how I could say it. It's like, I keep going back to Mount Weather, because like with the whole the Mount Weather people needed the bone marrow from Sky Crew in order to get that radiation, in order for them to live on the ground and not underground. So I'm wondering if would people be more accepting of how they're able to live on the ground if they found out just what the means were to get that bone marrow by torture and killing? Would you still be open to going through that process of that treatment, as opposed if you found out like, oh, they willingly sacrificed it, or they willingly donated it to you? It's like, okay, if they donated it, like, people are more accepting of the offer. But if you're told like it's taken by force, it's like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. So I'm wondering if the same thing would be kind of said in this situation, if the people of Sanctum kind of knew it. I mean, it seems like the children of Gabriel are completely aware of what's going on, and that's why they have formed their little rebellion against it. So I'm wondering what other lies the people of Sanctum have been told, or how much of the truth are they aware of? Sorry, that's a long tangent, but it just left me wondering, because it's actually an interesting idea of what actions people would be willing to accept or willing to turn a blind eye on, and ones that they wouldn't. Like, we do see it specifically with Raven and Riker when they're fighting. So there's that. The last tidbit was the fact that we don't see Jordan in this episode. He is mentioned as being the one to have told Raven and Mori and Echo about the whole Prime situation when they returned from the radiation thing. But he's not seen, which is understandable, because he's probably still grieving over the fact that Delilah is technically dead. So there's that. So ship status, let's move on to that. So Bellamy and Clark, we don't actually see it on screen between the two of them, but we do see him grieving over the idea that Clark is dead. He's restrained and locked up, and he's still grieving. He's still thinking like he's kind of like, there's all these things that she wanted for us. Like, she cared, like he's really bringing up the fact that she cared for all of us. She wouldn't want to leave us. She wouldn't leave us all of us behind. Like, he's like, you could see it for him. So like, despite the sadness of it, I do appreciate that we actually got like a full on reaction from it. And then you could see like it's devastating him. It's like something that we got to see briefly in 413 when he believed that Clark died on the ground just after Prime Fire happened. We kind of briefly saw that grief from him, but to actually see it again from him in a different way was interesting. Also, I will tie it up to, let's go straight into Bellamy and Maddie, because he's the one that actually tells her about Clark being dead. And the thing about this is that Maddie comes down, and then Bellamy like pretty much gets down on her level, and he's like, this, and we don't hear him telling her. It's a far away shot, and like there's no dialogue we see. We just see him being on her level, and then her just throwing her arms around him for needing the comfort from him. And just like that moment was so close to bringing me to tears, because in that moment I just saw like a father telling his kid that her mom is gone. So it's just like, it was so sad. And it was just like, for him to be the one to tell her too, I feel like there would have been no one else better to give that news to him. But then also we don't see him enough of the Bellamy Maddie scenes, and it's just like, it was tugging at my heartstrings. So I'll leave it at that. So let's lead into Bellamy and Echo. We don't really only see the one scene at the very end when they reunite and she is told officially by him that Clark is dead. But in this episode, we do see Echo, more specifically, of her being protective over his fate, the idea that he could be in danger. Like she's threatening to kill everybody if Bellamy is harmed when she's facing off against Jade. So it's just really showing the intensity of that relationship, and it's just like, it's great and all, but like that makes it so hard, because I like I like Echo. She, like, I've grown to like her. I mean, I liked her in season 2 when she was introduced, but then when she turned out to be Esgata and she was like doing these assassination things, I was like, no, she's the enemy. So like, she's slowly coming around for me again. So it's just like, I could go without her being in a relationship with Bellamy, but like the fact that they are, and it's just like, I don't know, you know how I feel about that, but like, I like how they're portraying it, so it's pretty good. So there's that. Now, Raven and Riker, I did mention that. Tensions galore between the two of them over the fact that he's a Prime, the fact that he claims that he doesn't want to be, he didn't ask to be resurrected, but she even points out the fact like she asked the good questions against him. It really kind of like stumps him, because like there's no way you can lie around the answer. So it's like saying like, she pointed out the fact that you're Riker number 9. I mean, you've done this repeatedly. You've taken possession of other people. You've had death on your hands, type of thing. And he's saying like, and he's also saying like, I never asked to be resurrected. And then she's like, this isn't. And then she even asked like, this isn't going to be your last host, is it? And he doesn't answer. And like, she knows from that, it's like, he's not going to stop. So it's like very interesting to see like they're on two very hard sides of the spectrum. And I don't know any possible relationship that forms between them. I don't know how it's going to be if they don't get over this. Unless he decides that he's not going to take a vessel after this, then like maybe there's a possibility, but who knows. Then again, it might be too soon after Shaw. I'm just saying. So there's that. Also, Maddie and Gaia, we do have the whole banished thing happen. At least she didn't kill her. I was a little worried that Maddie might kill Gaia. But instead, she kind of ditches her teacher and kind of asks the Dark Commander to teach her how to kill those who killed Clark as her revenge. So there's that. But let's move on to most shocking moment of the episode. I'm going to say that the Clark's mental prison was only a shocking moment because I didn't expect it to happen so soon. I mean, technically, Clark was taking control over it at the end of 604, so it was only 605 that we got a full episode without Clark. So I was kind of surprised like that. I thought like we'd have a little bit. I thought for some reason that there'd be more of a time absence with Clark. I'm not saying that I don't mind. I'm thrilled that we got an ounce of Clark in this episode. But I for some reason I thought it'd be a little bit longer. It's kind of like, okay, on Supernatural, they did have a tendency a lot of the times that if on the season finale, they always put Dean up in these situations where like these different diverging storylines, and then usually by the third episode of the next season, it's already resolved, and then like he's back to being normal or something, and then like the rest of the season is the aftermath of what he had to do in the previous 3 episodes. So it was always like a very quick, you already know that it's going to be quickly resolved, or physically resolved, and then like the aftermath afterwards. So it's kind of something like that. It's like, I wasn't expecting it. Maybe because of the fact that we had the 1 week hiatus, it seemed a little longer, but yeah, so I was kind of surprised that we got to see Clark so soon. I mean, I'm thrilled. Don't get me wrong, but I thought we wouldn't. So there's that. So let's move on to top 3 favorite moments. First one, absolutely Bellamy and Clark, specifically Bellamy's grief and rage over the idea that Clark is dead. I mean, it's in the Insider clip that that was released before the episode, and he pretty much wants to kill the Primes and take their compound for themselves in reaction to them killing Clark and replacing her with Josephine. I mean, the fact this is pretty, like, what I like about it is not only the intense, because this whole time Bellamy has been going about, like, we need to do better, we can do better, pretty much what Clark was doing when they first started the season, right? Like, hoping to do better in this new world type of thing, right? But the moment that something bad happens to Clark, he immediately flips back to being the Bellamy that's ruled by his heart, which Jordan made a comment about in the previous episode, saying, like, Heart Bellamy is who I like better in regards to, like, the old stories he was told about by his parents. So it was very interesting to get the old Bellamy back, essentially, where, like, he was pretty much going to the violence as a way to get revenge off of what they had done to Clark. So it was just, like, the intensity of how easily he switched back to his old self was something that I really like, because usually if you're making so much progress, usually it takes something major to set you back. So I like that major moment ended up being Clark. So there's that. Second favorite was the fact that just how well Murphy seems to know Clark when he's teaching Josephine about her. There's the timer. It's like, I honestly wasn't expecting the depth and detail. I mean, like, a lot of the stuff is, like, stuff that we as fans know about Clark, just from, like, the experiences over the last 6 seasons. But for Murphy to kind of regurgitate all that and to know it well, and just, like, I wasn't expecting that. I also had that fan fiction stuck in my head, too, about Clark and Murphy being buddy-buddy and everything. So it's just, like, I'm kind of surprised. So it's kind of my favorite. It kind of showed, because even though Murphy kind of harps on Clark a bunch of the time, and, like, even though they're like the cockroaches that stick together type of thing, I did appreciate that during this lesson, despite it being for the enemy, I did like it showcased how much he does pay attention about Clark and how much he actually does know about her, despite him saying he doesn't like her. Like, and he made a comment about that too, but now I'm still guessing whether or not that was true or not. But yeah, so there's that. Another favorite of mine is also the whole thing with Echo going against Jade. First off, the fact that Echo knocked Jade out was just fantastic. I do not believe for 1 second that Echo would lose in a fight against Jade. Between the two of them, I believe Echo is the superior fighter, hands down. So I'm just glad that she pretty much, when she was told that no, leave it be, and then Echo's like, screw you, I'm giving this guy mercy, and she knocks Jade out and then gives this guy who's being eaten by a tree and gives him a merciful death. So it's just like, and then she changed Jade up to the exact same tree that she was gonna let her buddy slowly die from. So it's just like, yes, Echo, dish out that proper justice right there. Plus, I also like how Echo figured out that Clark wasn't actually Clark anymore, and then how she figured out that, like, she was being taken over and taken control of. And then thankfully she already knew, going into her search for Bellamy at that time, she already knew that that was a possibility. So I did appreciate how we got to see glimpses of Grounder Echo, because I know since being in space, she has had to curb that fighter instinct a little bit. So there's that. And another favorite I have, I'm thinking of just doing a section this season just called Parallels, because it seems like every episode so far there have been major parallels to past storylines in this, and it's just like, I can't just have it always be a favorite, so I might do that next time, so we'll see about that. But this, again, specifically, it's going to be mostly it's season 2 parallels, but specifically in this one, we got it with or I saw it in Russell and Josephine, and pairing them against Dante and Cage Wallace. So we have the two fathers, Russell and Dante. They're both wanting to go the peaceful route when it comes to Sky Crew or the Earthborn, and wanting to make peace and trying to accept them and everything. But then you got their kids. You got Josephine and you got Cage, wanting to take what they want from the Earthborn or from Sky Crew, just take it to whatever benefits them, and then just kind of like, if it kills them, then it kills them. And like, it's no skin off their back type of thing. So with Josephine, she wants to do whatever it can to create new Nightbloods. If it means killing anybody that stands in her way, then okay, then she is all for that. She's willing to deceive people. She's willing to dish out these kill orders, which is something that's completely against her father's wishes. And even says like, are you so far gone that you've forgotten who you used to be, type of thing. And then with Cage and the whole Mount Weather thing, he's the one that wanted to go the more torturous route when it came to taking the bone marrow from the surviving 100. And instead of just asking, he was going to take that bone marrow until they died. And I think there was quite a few of them that they ended up doing that to these kids, no less. So, and yeah, that makes a difference. And they were doing it also to the grounders as well for as long as they were around. So it's just, I saw, and then Dante is the one like, no, there's got to be a better way for us to get to the ground instead of making all these sacrifices type thing. So it's very interesting to see that type of parallel between the father-child dynamic in their respective situations. So there's that. Another parallel is the fact with Raven, how Raven was arguing with Riker. I mean, specifically, it was about the morality behind taking a vessel and pretty much bringing people up for the slaughter type thing. And I paralleled it with how Raven behaved with Wick in season 2, specifically in 204. These two would always butt heads when they're trying to figure a problem out, and then when they had this moment of a eureka, they would be working together. So it's like they always had this they always had this banter between each other. And then for some reason, the argument with Raven and Riker kind of reminded me of that. So, but then, as you know, Raven ended up sleeping with Wick in 214. So I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up doing the same with Riker later on down the line. But that was a parallel there. And another parallel I found was the whole idea of the people of Sanctum being born and raised to believe that if you're a Nightblood, then you're meant to be a vessel to the Prime. Which is the highest order. You're treated with high respect until you take on until your naming day, when you are accepted as a Prime and you pretty much are the host to who they believe is an immortal entity, right? So there's that. I paralleled that with the whole conclave when it came to the Grounders' traditions of how the next commander is brought up. So the same thing in regards to if they were a Nightblood, then they were pretty much put in a pool together, and they'd have to fight in the death until one came out and became the new commander of the 12 clans. So pretty much the same thing, except for the fact that as those Nightbloods, they were raised to believe that, well, both of them technically were raised to believe by a certain point in your life, you're pretty much not guaranteed to survive. Kind of similar with people with the Sky Crew and them living in the Ark. If you were a criminal, you live in the skybox until, if you were a child criminal, then until your 18th birthday, you were floated. So like up to that point, any one of our members of the 100, they didn't think that they lived past their 18th birthday, not until they got sent to the ground. So it's kind of the same with this, in the fact that both Nightblood options for either the Grounders or for the Sanctum people, they're brought up with the impression that either for Sanctum, up until your naming date, that's pretty much all you have. And then like you're giving yourself over to the Prime, the deities of the Prime. And then for the Grounder Nightblood, you're pretty much, until a certain age, you get entered in the conclave, and only one of you survives and comes out alive. So like, I don't know if that's by a certain age or it's by a certain time of like, if by like, say like a certain year, if you happen to be 5, or by a certain year, if you happen to be 10 and all the other contendants are 15 and older, you're still going to be part of that conclave, and like only one survivor. So it's like kind of like you pretty much grow up knowing it's fight to the death, and you're training to prepare yourself for that. So it's kind of like the parallel there is the fact that you're pretty much training these specific sets of people to accept that their life is going to end more prematurely than anybody else's, essentially. So I thought that was interesting. It definitely brings up a conversation. It definitely brings up ideas of whether or not would that faith change if certain aspects were made aware. Because technically, because here's what I want to bring up. The Grounders believed in the holiness of the whole being with the Nightblood. So they were willing to accept Clark as a Nightblood to be the next commander until it was revealed that she was not born as a Nightblood. And that's why they rejected her as a commander, or why they didn't want to take her. So like, there's that. And it's also why they agreed to have Octavia as their Red Queen, because like she didn't have the blood to be their commander, but they also now knew that having the blood can now be generated. So it's not like a pick of the higher beings picking the person, until they had Maddie and found out that she was an actual true Nightblood. So it's kind of like the Grounders' perspective of what their beliefs, that shifted, and it had them, especially with Gaia. You see with Gaia when she's trying to make sense of the whole of everything. So there's that. So I'm left wondering if Sanctum actually knew what it meant to be a prime. They know that there's a sacrifice being made. They know there's a vessel. But if they knew that it was all because of this little memory drive that allows for the primes to exist, would they feel differently? Would they all decide to rebel and be part of the children of Gabriel? That's something there. And I totally went off a complete tangent, and I'm like twice over than usual. So there's that. So let's move on to top peeved moments. I will admit that the peeve I had in 605 is again in 606. And that is the fact that Josephine was able to convince Abby that she was Clark. And I don't know if I'm more annoyed because of the fact that I know that Josephine is a fraud and that she was able to trick Abby. And I know that, as if I remember correctly, Mr. Legendary AO did comment about that distinction. And I will admit, I got a little heated in the previous episode. But it does change the perspective also. Like, if I'm just strictly in Abby's mindset, then yeah, I guess there wouldn't be a reason for me to suspect that my daughter is not really my daughter anymore, even though she has my face. So I guess I can understand it. It's a little more peeved to the fact that I know it and I'm seeing this happen, and it's more like it's more of those moments where you're just watching something unfold and you're thinking, why are you doing this? Why is this happening? Are you an idiot? I have those moments a lot when I'm watching things, sadly. So it's like one of those moments, but also it made another peeve tied onto the fact is that Abby made it very clear that she was not aware that they were in need of saving, because Josephine did slip up on the fact that she stated that they needed Kane to help Carter peace that we would need, giving Abby the illusion that I wasn't aware that we needed saving type of thing. I'll put the actual quote up on screen. But it definitely ticked me off over the fact that Abby is not in the loop about what the primes are all about. I mean, even before everybody found out that Clark was actually Josephine, I mean, we had everybody converging together to talk about this. And just, I find it very upsetting that Abby wasn't included in that. And I'm wondering why that wasn't the case. I mean, specifically if her own, like Bellamy made a comment about the fact like how he thought the primes were a threat because they were a threat to Clark. If that's the case, I'm kind of surprised that Abby wasn't made aware of this immediately, because it's her own daughter that's at risk, right? So it's just, that really pissed me off of the fact that Abby was not made aware. And the fact that she's so far up in her obsession to save Kane that she is not taking part in these regular updates. She's just leaving everybody to do their own thing and figure out where they're going to live. And she's going to stick her own little corner to try to figure out how to save Kane, who again is in cryo sleep and safe until you decide to wake him up again. So it's like her focus could be elsewhere. I'm just saying. So that's also a tacked on peeve there. So there's that. But I will say that Josephine did make a fair point of the fact that Kane does have the ability to broker peace with people. He could be useful right now, but he's better in cryo sleep. Just saying. Another peeve I did have was the fact that Murphy wasn't on Bellamy's side. Instead, he took the deal. I mean, it's not a major peeve because that's still aligned with Murphy's character as the cockroach, and he's like doing things for the betterment of himself. But like also, I just wish in that moment when it was happening, it's like, oh, are you actually double-crossing Josephine? Are you actually here to help Bellamy? And it's just like, I'm thinking that, and it's just like, wait, this is going to be too good to be true. And then it turned out to be too good to be true. He's actually working for Josephine. He's not a double agent. I expected to be a double agent, but in this case, he wasn't. So I was a little disappointed. Not peeved, but disappointed, but it's still aligned with his character, so I get it. And another peeve I did have was the fact that Maddie only saw the Dark Commander when she was partaking in that separation ritual. I was completely ready when Gaia was saying that that Maddie would have the guide of the other commanders with her, and that she just has to separate herself from the Dark Commander. I was fully ready to see Becca Promheda and to see Lexa again, but then when she went inside the flame, to find that safe space, and yet she was just surrounded by thrones and only the Dark Commander was there. I was like, oh great, really? Are you going to imply that he killed all of them or something, or he's separated? It's like, no, I was so ready to see Becca and Lexa again, just giving that support and kind of helping her and giving her advice. But I can understand why they wouldn't, just because of like availability issues. I don't know. But yeah, that was a P because I was disappointed. I mean, they were building it up there like, oh, am I going to see her? I'm going to see her. And then like, I don't. But we do see Lexa in a drawing at the very end in Clark's last scene. So I guess that's something. So there's that. But moving on to random questions very quickly. First one. I'm left wondering where in the ranking or the lineage or the successions of the commanders does the Dark Commander fall? I mean, we know Becca was the first commander, Becca Promheda. So I'm just wondering, was Dark Commander afterwards? Was he the third, fourth, fifth, however many long? So I'm just wondering where he falls, because that kind of might tell us like how far back or how much experience he has and what we're dealing with. So there's that question. Another question was, is what the Dark Commander was saying about Gaia true, or is he just planting doubts into Maddie's head to isolate her for himself to corrupt? I mean, on the one hand, he made a few claims that is like kind of like, oh, I can see her doing that type of thing. But on the other hand, it's like, wait, are you just putting that in my head so I can start looking for things that aren't there? So I'm not sure. But he's just creepy as well, too. But that's not going to be the last we see of him. So there's that. Another question. How much of what Murphy told Bellamy was true and not part of his scam to convince Bellamy to take the deal? Because, like, I'll put the quote up, but, like, specifically he was saying about how, like, it's Clark. Like, he was saying, like, it's Clark, even though, like, we were at odds, she's still one of us, and that's kind of, like, yeah, here, I say it. Murphy explains the deal, and then Bellamy says, like, what did you say? And then Murphy's like, what do you think I said? It's Clark. She may not be my favorite as of late, but she's still one of us. Or one of ours. I mean, like, for that right there, when he said that, I was like, is Murphy actually on our team? Is that true? Now, knowing that he was actually still on Josephine's side, I'm left wondering if when he said that, if it was still a true statement, or is he just saying it for the situation to convince Bellamy? Because if that's the case, I'm going to be very disappointed. So there's that. And last question. By the end of the episode, is Abby still unaware of Clark's situation? The fact that she is no longer Clark and she's now Josephine? I'd be very ticked off if that was the case. But then, like, I can also see her being left in the dark just so she could continue with the whole creating the Nightblood situation. But then it's like, wasn't Clark part of that whole process? Like, isn't Clark the one that kind of helped create that situation? I don't know. So there's that. But moving on to predictions very quickly, based off the promo for 607, let me say I'm very hyped by this promo because it shows Josephine going up against Clark inside of Clark's mental cage, and we get Clark saying, get out of my head. Let me just say, I'm so excited about that because we get Clark going up against the original Josephine face. So there's that. That's pretty much all you see of the promo is just the two of them. And it's taking place in Clark's, in the skybox, essentially in Clark's old cell, which I'm loving the callbacks to that. I mean, like, it's been 6 years. So it's like, it's great to see that set again. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about the fact that we do get Clark. And the fact that we're getting a mental showdown, I've been hoping for this since the very idea of, like, this whole possession thing was taking on, because I wanted to see this type of showdown happen since I've seen it done a few times on Supernatural, especially when the main characters over there got possessed by angels, or even by demons, really, just to see them, or specifically angels, to see them have that mental fight with the angel counterpart that's possessing them. Since I've been wanting to see something like that over here with Clark, and I'm so excited to see that happen. And I'm ready for Clark to kick Josephine's butt and just kick her out of her head. Like, I can't wait for that to happen. I'm also wondering if it's the same thing for the other vessels, if they're experiencing something like this. And, like, maybe the only difference is the fact that Clark is fighting the possession while all the other vessels gave themselves over willingly, despite the misinformation that had been given. So maybe that's probably where the difference lies from. So there's that. But the synopsis for the episode reads, Clark's past catches up to her. That's probably the shortest synopsis I've ever read. But I am thrilled that it's actually Clark that it's referring to in the synopsis, as opposed to in 605 when they used Clark's name, but it was actually Josephine. Like when they said like Bellamy and Clark are not on the same side when it was actually Josephine. So I'm glad that when it says Clark's past, it's actually Clark's past that we're going to be dealing with. And if we're going to see flashbacks through that mental cage of her, I'm all ready for it. I'm so excited to go down memory lane. I'm ready to see maybe some old characters come back for a visit. Maybe this is how we're going to see Jake, because her father is supposed to appear in this episode again. I don't know, but I'm so excited for it. So excited for it. So I'll leave it at that. But random news. So I usually don't comment about this, but I was very surprised because on Friday, so that was June 7th, 2019, Eliza Taylor and Bob Morley, aka Clark and Bellamy, they announced on Twitter that they got married. And it was actually that announcement was the first public announcement they made on their relationship. Not only was I floored by this news at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I was so overjoyed and so happy. It's just like, I wasn't expecting it either. It's just like, wow. I mean, while I have so many questions about like when it started and like how things kind of progressed and everything, but like I'm just so happy. And I'm also impressed that they've kept it a secret from the world for this long. I mean, granted, their close friends and family will know about it since the beginning, but like I'm very impressed with today's day and age of like social media and everyone always having to post their lives up and like updates and everything. I'm surprised that they kept something like this a secret for so long. So especially for celebrities, we always see them posting like random stuff and everything. So like I was very surprised by the restraint there. I'm also so happy for them as well. Plus, so anyways, I'm loving it. I love that they're together. I love that the way they announced it was amazing. I definitely couldn't stop smiling, and I was supposed to be asleep, so there's that. But I will leave it at that because it's definitely getting twice as long than I originally planned. So that is pretty much it. What do you guys think of the episode? What do you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I read blog, promos, web clips, coach, GIFs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I'm going to try to be a little better, but it's a slow work in progress. As well, WordPress account, link for that is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but again, work in progress as well. But that is pretty much it, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for you listening to my rants. I don't know if I cut them out or not at this point. There's probably a little note on screen. But yeah, I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say. But until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Bye for now.